Bienvenidos a Después de la pérdida.
Un podcast creado para ustedes.
Las personas que han tenido una pérdida,
quieren aprender del dolor
o conocer más sobre la vida.
Un espacio para crecer en resiliencia.
Y también en amor. Yo soy Gaby Pérez Islas.
Yo, Eduardo Madrigal.
Comenzamos. Hola, bienvenidos a un episodio más de Después de la pérdida. Me da muchísimo gusto recibirlos. Hoy mi corazón más alegre que nunca. Tenemos un episodio especial, muy especial. ¿Cómo estás, Eduardo Madrigal?
Muy bien, contento de estar aquí. Sí, ya de entrada a un lugar diferente, entonces ya saben que algo está pasando aquí, ¿no?
Este es mi consultorio. Aquí están, bienvenidos todos. Este es el espacio donde paso tantas horas, donde recibo a mis usuarios, donde escribo, donde leo. Y hoy, en especial, nos venimos por aquí porque vamos a tener un invitado de lujo, extraordinario. La verdad es que para mí un regalo de la vida, su amistad y su confianza. Hoy vamos a hablar con Ken Ross, con el hijo de Elisabeth Kübler-Ross. Y quiero decirles que este va a ser un episodio totalmente en inglés.
Pero no se asusten, aquí va a estar abajo todo en subtítulos, entonces pueden irlo viendo en inglés con los subtítulos. Si van manejando, pues tal vez no, pero pueden practicar su inglés igual, entonces eso está muy bien.
Sí, perdónenos cualquier falla que cometamos, tampoco hablamos en inglés todo el tiempo,
no.
Pero queremos ser buenos anfitriones con nuestro invitado y que él entienda todo y no tener que estar traduciendo ni perdiendo el tiempo. Es una joya estar directamente con él. Ken Ross es un fotógrafo maravilloso, ha viajado a 112 países, es un ciudadano del mundo, la verdad, y ha tomado unas fotos extraordinarias captando el color, la luz y el alma de los lugares a donde va. Así que les recomiendo mucho su trabajo y hoy vamos a hablar de la nueva edición del libro de su mamá, La muerte, un amanecer, de la fortuna que tuve de poder hacer el prólogo para este libro, de la confianza y bueno, pues de los próximos, a ver qué eventos va a haber, porque el año que entra se cumplen 100 años del nacimiento de mi gran maestra, mi mentora, Elisabeth Kübler-Ross. Así que disfruten este episodio, acomódense, disfruten y vamos con todo. Hablar, y lo digo y no me lo puedo creer, vamos a tener esta conversación con Ken Ross. So we're here with our guest, Ken Ross. Hello, Ken. We're very, very glad to have you here.
Hello, Gabby. Always a pleasure. I hope I can see you in person soon somewhere.
Yes. I hope you come to Mexico before I leave Mexico, or any place in the world we can see, because I was telling the audience that you're a citizen of the world. 112 countries already. Is that accurate?
Yes. I try to do 3 new ones every year at a minimum.
So. Which ones are coming this 2025?
Well, I think I need to do a deeper dive. So I was thinking about going to Baghdad and Tehran and maybe Bhutan in Central Asia.
Okay. Asia is calling you again. You love Asia. I know that.
So, see the world before you leave it.
That was one of your mother's saying, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have to see the world before you leave it. And you have taken that very seriously.
Exactly. These are a few of my photographs up here and on this wall.
Wow.
Wow. I know we talked about some of this stuff before, early in the past, but this is the first time our viewers will be listening to these stories. So we're sorry if we're a little bit repetitive, but maybe I would like to ask you about this fascination of yours of traveling the world and seeing it. It's because of what your mother said, but also something inside you wants to see the world, right?
Yeah, it was both my parents, actually. My father loved to travel. You know, they were both doctors. So at the dinner table every evening, they were both talking about death and dying, disease, the end of life. My father was bringing home human brains, leaving them in the kitchen because the garage door opened to the kitchen. So he'd bring in his brains so they didn't, have some trouble in his car trunk. And I grew up hearing about death all the time. So my father had these National Geographic magazines. And I thought, wow, if life is so short, what can I do to make it just unbelievably interesting? And I thought, these photographers who travel around the world and visit tribal people and hang out of helicopters, they must have the most interesting lives, possible. So that was my fantasy.
So your father traveled because he went to Congress and give lectures about medicine, or vacation? He took time to have vacations?
Yeah, he did everything. He went to medical school in Switzerland, that's how my parents met. And then he loved to go on vacation. He had doctor associates in Japan and Europe he liked to visit. And of course, my mom's family was in Switzerland, and my mother was traveling all over the world for her lectures. So sometimes she'd bring the family, sometimes she'd bring just me. And my father also had conferences, and it was just always in the DNA of our family.
And at what age, Ken, did you start traveling with your mom and being beside her all the time, going with her to her conferences? At what age, more or less?
My first trip to Europe, I was 11 months old, actually, to see my grandfather who was dying. He had developed, I can't remember what it was. He had an operation on the elbow, and then it became systemic, and they couldn't save him. So he asked for my mother to bring, his little grandson who had been born in New York over to Europe before he passed. So my mother went over there, and of course my mother loved to be naughty. So the family was told that the father had to die at the hospital, and they didn't like that. So at midnight, her and her triplet sisters came and kidnapped their father out the window of the hospital and took him home to die the last few days of his life so he could drink his favorite wine, hear his daughters playing piano. And that was like an early hospice experience for my mother.
Exactly.
And she thought that was a beautiful death. So why can't we do this in America and other places?
Your grandmother was still alive when that happened?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And she agreed with the kidnapping?
Yeah, of course. My mother was, the naughtiest person in our family. So,
Most of us would have like the death of a pet or a fish would be our first encounter with death. But you, at a very early stage in your life, had this opportunity to face this. I mean, I'm sure you won't remember much, but when they tell you about this, and do you remember like those early years of your life, growing up so close to death? Do you think that changed very much in relation to your friends or with the people you hang out with?
well, they always thought my family was strange because they'd come over to dinner and here's 3 human brains sitting in the kitchen. And then my mother has a dying patient at the dinner table. And then my mother is talking about near-death experiences. And, it's just death, death, death everywhere we looked. My mom had dying people staying at the house. And we go to conferences, I'd bring my friends sometimes. And so I was like, wow, your family is so strange. Like, what is their obsession about death? I'm like, it's not a bad thing to them. They're trying to make it, a comfortable, decent experience. And so, everyone's like a little interested in our family, but also a little fearful. But yeah, I was traveling from the time I was 11 months old. And then when I was 9, my mother really began traveling.
Okay.
So then, within 1 or 2 years, I was going down a calendar every few months, taking trips to Egypt and Brazil and, South Africa. And so I went to 19 countries with her by the time I was in college.
Neither you or your mom were afraid of flying?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Taking a plane was something very common in your house.
Yeah, in the early days, we were always on propeller planes, so it's just how it was back in the 60s. But my mother had very few fears at all. Like, I think her only fear was having a fear. Like, she was trying to always break down the fears. Like, don't live your life fear-based, live it love-based.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
So what we should fear is having fear.
Don't live your life fear-based, live it love-based.
Right, exactly. So that, opens up so many possibilities because we're always hiding in this box and we don't live fully. My mom said, when we can live fully, that's when we're never afraid to die at the end because we've lived all our possibilities, we've taken chances, and sure, we've made mistakes, but we did them with this beautiful intention.
What a lesson. What a big, big lesson. And Ken, I know it was your mom and it was usual for you, everything that was happening. But when did you realize, my mom is very important person. When did you say, oh, everyone wants to come and talk to her? She's in the cover of some magazines. She has written so many books. When did you realize how important she was for the world, not only for your family?
Well, I think there was a couple instances. One in high school, my mother asked me to come see her get an award, and it was an award being given by four of the first ladies in America, like the president's wives, and there was going to be four giving her the award. I was like, wow, like even I was like, oh, that's a little impressive. And another time, about the same time, my mother invited me to have pizza with Shirley MacLaine, who was a big actress back in the 60s and 70s. And I was like, oh, no, I have too much homework, I can't go. But
Come on.
yeah, so, there was things beginning to happen like that, which were very unusual even in our household. So, yeah, and also going to see my mom's lectures, I'd be in some city in some other country and there'd be 2, 4, 5,000 people at this lecture hall. I'm like, they can't be coming to hear my mother, and I would sneak in the back and listen to the people talking about my mother. And it was so weird. It was like, it was another person.
So you were a very proud son of your mom.
I was probably, that was like another person. So, I was just happy with my mother was so adventurous and interesting and funny. And, people always thought she was serious because she was the death and dying doctor, but really that made her very naughty. And she liked to have, she called it mischief, go cause little problems and be a little, let's ride a motorcycle and steal a sign and let's go do, something crazy. So,
Wow.
That would be my question. It would be probably difficult to separate like the professional Elisabeth Kübler-Ross from your mother, the loving person and the one raising childs and whatnot. What would you say would be the main differences from her being in front of the stage and with talking to all of these people about death, and then back at home, like, I don't know, a regular Tuesday night with the family?
well, when my mom was working with like patients, like for example, she'd give a lecture, and in the middle of the lecture, she'd be pointing to people like, I need to see you after the lecture. And they'd be like, me? Like they couldn't believe it. Like, well, Elizabeth's on stage, with thousands of people, and she picks me. And my mother said, I'm smelling the audience. I can smell who really needs help now, and she would just like connect with her antenna. This person has a dying son and they need help right now tonight because I won't be able to help them tomorrow after I leave. And so she would call back about a dozen people and do quick therapies with them after the lecture. So she would stay for hours after talk ended at 10, 11 o'clock at night. She'd be there till like 1 in the morning doing therapy sessions with each of the families saying, okay, you need to call my center in California. You need to connect to this person. You need to hear this. Here's a book about that. And she'd do therapy. And she was very, very, very focused with her, like, I call it magic antenna. But then when she got home, she's like, oh, Kenneth, like, I need a cigarette and a chocolate and let's go, shopping. And she's very like easy shoulders, but when she's working, wow, it was like laser beams. She was just like totally focused on reading everybody.
I have seen videos of your mom working with a dying patient, and something about her changed completely. Her side is like softer, her voice, her kindness, the way she moved. She completely transformed herself when she was on stage than when she was working with a dying patient. Do you think that was one more of her gifts?
Yeah, it was definitely her gift. I mean, she had a capacity for listening, on another level. And she did it with me too, which made me a little angry. So she'd give me a list of 17 things to do. I come back 4 days later and she'd only ask about the one thing I didn't do. Like every time, how did you know? And then she said, Kenneth, I just asked you to do one thing. No, Mom, you asked me to do 17. I did 16. No, Kenneth, I just asked you for one thing and you didn't do it. I'm like, wow. Her little antenna were just always going. So I couldn't hide from my mother. But yeah, she did that with patience, and that was her gift to be able to listen. She called it, working on the nonverbal language or symbolic nonverbal language was like so important to her work. Yes. And she could do it, with her family, but she could also do it with of course, the patients.
Yeah, she understood things that the patient was trying to tell her and without words. And she understood everything. It's amazing, amazing. Do you think you have a little gift in that, or your sister maybe, or no?
I think I have it in a slightly different way, but people always tell me I'm just the luckiest person they've ever met. And I'm like, yeah, I'm lucky, but like, I think you can create your own luck
Yes.
by learning to follow your intuition, your third eye, whatever you want to call it. I think, there's paths, better paths to take. And I think when you're listening and going by your instinct, can become lucky or whatever you call it, or have a better life. So I think I'm able to listen to the path I should take.
I think you listen to your instinct, and I think that you're very good in knowing people who is really interested in the work, the story of your mom, or who just wants the name, the fame. I don't know about. I think your instincts let you be so close to animals too. Did you learn that from your mom, or it is a special love that you have for the four-legged fur children?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's definitely instinctual for me, but my mother was, a huge lover of animals. She always had St. Bernards, the Swiss national dog. And of course, she had her farm, so she had a dozen llama and pigs and sheep, and
Wow.
she had just everything on her farm. But we grew up in a house with a crazy number of cats. We always had a couple big dogs. And so it just always seemed natural to have these little, I call them love muffins, because when you love them, they love you back just as much, if not more.
Yes.
So I always had this little rescuer syndrome. I need to rescue all these little animals like my mother did. And, when she was young, she used to go out into the forest as a child and rescue injured animals, bring back birds and rabbits. And she had a little animal hospital at her house in Switzerland.
Wow.
So our parents used to think it was crazy, but she always had this need to rescue anything that was injured.
Wow.
And do you think animals is like a way, or petting animals or taking care of someone that really needs you, a way to be more connected to life? Most of the people who write to us, they just had a recent loss or are kind of lost in the path of life and don't know like which thing to do next because they just lost their loved one. Would you say having an animal like a cat or a pet or a fish or whatever would be a good idea to like center yourself back into life by taking care of someone else's life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think animals have souls, some more so than others, or you can connect with them more so. So, some of my cats have been so soulfully connected to me, and I just, they'll reach out as I'm sitting here at the desk or sitting in front of me, and they reach out and touch me, and they stare into my eye. Such a beautiful connection. There's that unconditional love that my mother was talking about. You can see that in animals. You love them, and they'll love you back. Sometimes 5 times more, 10 times more. But it's a great way to connect with nature and the earth, and have a living being here that's just always loving you. You're sitting here at the desk and people are yelling at you and they're frustrated and they don't do what you think they should be doing. But the animal is always here loving you unconditionally. And it's like a sense of peace. And it's like I have these little love batteries that give me love and give me energy.
Oh, love batteries. That's a wonderful way of seeing them.
I call them love batteries or love muffins. They just love you, love you, love you. And it's like, a little bit of, and there's no craziness. It's just, okay, I can feel at peace with these animals. And then I have energy to go back and,
and face the world, because you have a big task on your hands. You are in charge of taking care of your mom's legacy. I know you take very good care about her work, her videos, her audios, everything, because you want other generations to know her work, don't you?
And as you know, working with the press, it's a little frustrating sometimes because the press wants to write what they want to write about, or they want to pitch it in a certain way, which is not necessarily true, but makes for a good story. So, of course, with my mother, some people are a little naughty, some people are nice, some people don't understand because she's been gone for 20 years now. So I have to correct, the focus of the legacy. And, some people just totally misrepresent it because
Yes.
that's how they get popularity. They don't have something new to say, so they have to attack somebody who's not around to defend themselves. So, unfortunately, that's the price of fame, as you know.
In a little scale with your mom, but 20 years without her physically. Do you still miss her, Ken?
I do, but I also feel very, I don't know what the word is, satisfied. I mean, really, my mother lived her like most high potential. Like, a lot of people always talk about doing things, but they never really do it. And some, well, I'd love to travel a little bit. But my mother, like, wow, she lived 20 lifetimes. She did so much. Back in 1970, she was already getting 3,000 letters a month. And how did she answer 3,000 letters a month, write books, travel, see patients, have a family, have a practice? Like, I don't know I literally don't know how she did it, even though I lived with her. So I mean, she just lived at such a high level and somehow, generally had energy and brought passion and, started the palliative care movement and patient advocacy and bereavement research and all these things she did, ethics, medicine, and she just kept going and going. It was like there was 10 of her working at the same time. So she
Yes,
lived
she
her
lived
potential
many lives.
and that she had a successful life, and I just applaud her, for doing the unbelievable amount of work she did. So, she had a successful life. So I can't be too sad that she had this unbelievable life and did everything she ever dreamed of practically.
We applaud her life too, from the heart.
And I'm sure you have a really strong connection with her still today. But if you could have like one more conversation with her or tell her something, what would you like to tell her or her to know?
Well, now that I've been handling her work professionally for, well, I think 1987, so 38 years. So one thing I did, which I don't, I just decided for whatever reason that I was not going to read any of her books until she died. It was just a weird thing. As her son, I just wanted to think of her as my mother while she was here. But after she passed, made her transition, I started reading her books. And so now I'd love to go back and have discussions like, oh, why did you think this? Oh, how did you decide that? So I would love to talk to her professionally now that, the mother part physically is gone and I'm here doing the business part, but just, doing background into how she discovered all these different models and ideas of hers. So nothing terribly personal, unfortunately. I feel like I check that box, but professionally, I have a lot of questions.
A lot of questions. So you have now read all her books or not yet?
Not yet. Some of them,
16 out of 17.
yeah. Some of them are only in German, some are only in Spanish. So I've read all the English books, I should say.
Okay, okay. Have you read La muerte, un amanecer? This is the new edition.
Yeah, that one I have read, but I have to say, sometimes a lot of the publishers translate the titles differently. So the title in a certain language is not the same as the other language. So I don't even always know what it is because people tell me, here's the Finnish book. What is the title in Romanian? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
And they get mad at me. I'm like, no, you don't understand. They changed the titles. Like there's no correlation to the US title. So
This was the other edition, 2014, and it had CD here in the back.
uh-huh.
And now, this new edition that I'm very proud of it has a small booklet with your mom's reflections, thoughts, 29 of her thoughts, very beautiful thoughts. And the edition is a very beautiful one with a hardcover. And I'm so glad, and I wanted to thank you in front of my audience in Después de la Pérdida podcast, thanking you for letting me do the foreword to this book. It was one of my greatest privileges in life. Thank you. It was an honor for me to know that your mom's name and mine, although mine is very little, but we're together in a cover. I can't believe it. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you
it's
very
us
much.
who are honored. So I thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be with you on the book, in person, on Zoom, everywhere. I
Oh,
always love
thank
your
you.
energy, you and your beautiful family.
Thank you, Ken. We work a lot because we do believe in her work. We do believe that people is in need of Elisabeth Kübler-Ross, unconditional love, thinking, way of seeing life and death. What do you think if she would be alive, still alive?
Oh, but wait, just let me tell them, everyone, that this book is already on bookstores and everywhere. So I'll put the link in the description down below so you can purchase it now. It's already out there, so go get yours and read it. And now, getting back to this. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Maybe the only time we're going to have the two thanatologists together. One
You
guy,
never
one
know.
Elisabeth, big Elisabeth, always filling the pages. What do you think she would say if she would be alive about the way we handle death right now?
Well, it's a mixed bag. Some things are getting better, some things have not made progress at all. And unfortunately, a few things are getting worse, like hospice care in America. It's been taken over by corporate entities. And she warned of that. In 1973, she made a presentation before the US Congress, and she warned, don't let the hospices become like Kentucky Fried Chickens. And she knew it already back in 1973. She could see what would happen.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened. Like, corporations are buying them up and the care is going down. And, it's sad to see the poor service that people are getting in this country in hospice, because it's all about the money. So
Yes, I agree. And there are so many places in Latin America that we don't even have hospice care even. So we still have a lot to do in that subject.
yeah, she could not understand why it's taken so long. I mean, she always wanted things now. So yeah, she'd be a little frustrated to see what's happened.
But there are also new things, and I see a lot of books and maybe authors and podcasts like this one talking about death, dying, grief.
There are many podcasts about grief and dying.
That's
Do you
the
think
bright
she
side,
would have a podcast?
No. He was so anti-technology. I bought her 3 computers. She just like look at it like it was like rotten cheese or something, like, so she hated technology. She was an old-fashioned Swiss country hillbilly, and she had no interest in email, cell phones, any of that, So, no.
But we're grateful because she opened the conversation for us to be talking about this subject. And it's amazing how many podcasts are and how many programs and books and everything talking about that, because she was so courageous to be the first one to talk about it. So she will always be, as I say in the foreword, she's the seed, she's the plant, and she's the fruit of this big tree called thanatology and grief work. And we will always be grateful to her.
Yeah, she was like one of the original death doulas.
The OGs.
The 60s. So,
and it's going to be 100 years of her birth, right? Next year, yes. What is the foundation planning to celebrate this? How can we help too?
We have a lot of collaborations around the world. So in the last year, we've done projects in Bangladesh, for example, in Nepal, in India, Singapore. We did a conference in Nigeria. Wow. We're doing one in Botswana in September. We're doing one in the Philippines. A lot of international programming because she didn't have a chance to get to all these countries. So we're out there spreading the word. I just met with the Ministry of Education in Jakarta, Indonesia, and they're going to be teaching Elisabeth's work on the national level at the medical schools and to the social workers. They're going to be talking about the Kübler-Ross change curve. And we're re-releasing On Death and Dying. We're going to release a reader, kind of the best of Kübler-Ross's books. We're working on the movie on her life with Elvis Presley's granddaughter, so we're excited about that.
When do you think that would be ready?
I don't know. Like my mother, not soon enough.
Not soon enough. I ordered you only one thing and it cannot be done.
Exactly. That's all I wanted you to do. We're We're also kind of re-examining the 5 stages in the new way it's been approached as the Kübler-Ross change curve. So thousands of companies around the world are using it to
Yes,
train
I
their
know.
staff in change and loss. So some people say it's not really a grief model, it's a change and loss model. And that does overlap grief to some extent, but some people are more comfortable calling it change and loss.
Okay.
So we're working with many big companies. All the biggest companies in the world use it, like Exxon, Mobil, Shell, Sony,
Wow.
Samsung, Airbus, all use it to train their staff. So
Wow.
we'd like to get a hold of that conversation and be more in control of that conversation. So we don't want to go too much into business, but I think that is an important way to further examine Elisabeth's work in the future
Yes.
as part of conversation today and tomorrow.
Mm.
So we're working on a book on that, actually, on the change curve. And we're going to be working on new partnerships. We're going to be working on getting a stamp made with Elisabeth's face on it in
Oh,
Switzerland.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We have some partnership with Stanford. They're going to do an event next year, and with the American Association of Hospice and Palliative Medicine. They have 5,500 members, and I think 3,000 come to their conference next year in San Diego.
I want to
So
go.
they're doing
Let me know. I will be there. Please
Okay.
let me know.
Yeah, so they're going to do an event to memorialize my mom, and we're working with different groups like the American Writers Museum and others to memorialize her work and celebrate what she achieved in the past and the present and the future.
In the future. And I celebrate the work that you do, Ken. Really, I really celebrate that, and I appreciate it because she's big enough. But you have, for sure, you have taken her work to places never heard of her, and this is continuity and legacy. And thank you for doing that. I hope that someday someone I know will do the same thing with my work. It would be great. It's not an obligation, but it's wonderful love that you show for her every day.
One thing I'm proud of is since my mother made her transition, we've got her books in 17 new languages that were not available when she was alive.
Wow.
And hopefully in the next year or two, we're going to hit 50 languages around the world that her books
Wow.
can be found in. So we're working on Ukrainian, Nepalese, Hindi, and a few others right now for the first time.
Wow. It's a life work, and you're devoting your life to it. And I know you give time also to your own family, to taking pictures, to enjoying the world, having fun. And that's exactly what she taught you. If your life would be only about work, 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 she would say, haven't you learned anything, my son?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going out and trying to live a very crazy full life and live it love-based and not fear-based, and take some challenges, make my mistakes, but embrace them too.
Since I've met you, I've always wanted to ask you because I know of your love of photography and you're a really good photographer. But I always wonder if photography is like your way of fighting back death or anything that is very ephemeral, and you want that to live forever by taking that moment and having it live forever. Would you say that that's why you like photography so very much, because everything is so ephemeral that taking that moment would be impossible otherwise
It's
than
like preserving it.
yeah, like taking a picture of it?
I think it's many things. It's always hard to ask an artist, how they feel about their own work. But I think one thing was I was very shy and quiet when I was young. And so it was a way for me to express my passion about the world, but without having to use words. So it was my comfort space just to hide behind the camera and take pictures. And then also, it's like a diary of my life. So going through life, photographing these beautiful moments, and it's an expression of my love for the world and my engagement in what's going on without having to come out of my shell. But now that I'm older, I've gotten over my fears because I challenged my fears like mom taught me. So it's a diary. It's a way to communicate with others how beautiful the world can be if they open their eyes and, embrace love. It is a recording, a passage of time, a passage of cultures that are disappearing, a world that's disappearing. So it's a bit of everything, but it's definitely a diary too.
Yeah.
So
It's a wonderful work. We'll leave your site here.
I want to inspire people to go out and go to places they don't normally go to and not be fearful of this world, because most people are just like you and I. They just want to provide for their families and live a nice life. And we don't need to fear these places that we don't understand. We need to embrace them.
So open your eyes and go out and see the world. See the world before you have to leave it, because we're all going to have one day we'll have to leave it. Do you have another question? Because Eduardo
Yes, I
made
was
his
prepared.
homework. He researched, he wrote down his questions.
Well, I would say, what would you think is the biggest mistake people do when trying to comfort someone who is grieving nowadays? Because not everyone has this super antenna that your mom had,
Right.
and we try sometimes to help, but we also make a lot of mistakes, and we know words or actions can be very harmful, especially in these kinds of situations. So, what do you think is the worst thing people do in this moment?
I think a lot of people are nervous about silence. And that was one thing my mother really excelled at is we don't have to be afraid of silence or not talking to fill a space because you're uncomfortable. So we can just say, hey, you know, I feel horrible for what's going through with you, but I don't even have the words to tell you how sorry I am or understand what you're going through. I can't possibly understand what you're going through. So you can say, I don't understand. I don't have the words, but just let you know I'm here for you. And then my mother would say she is building a door, but the patient has to go through the door themselves. She can't push them through the door. She can't pull them. You just have to create a safe space where the person feels comfortable and safe. But, don't just keep talking to fill them space or express your emotions or your fears or your issues. Just create the space and then let them walk through.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. When I think that I know everything about your mom,
There's
I
something
don't.
new.
There's something new. There's something new. There's always something new I learn about her. Reading her book again and again. I have read them almost all, I think, and I have my collection here and my things that they are going to travel with me any place in the world where I live. She will be with me always, and I'm so grateful for that. And my heart is beating right now because sometimes I cannot believe I'm talking to you, Ken. Really.
I'm
I can't
nobody.
believe you're my friend. You're so close. You're so kind. Really, thank you.
I
Thank you
didn't
so
do
much.
anything, so I'm just here
No,
to serve my mother and serve the world.
you're
No, but
doing.
let me say something in contrary of that, because I think you do. I think, like, and I leave it with my mom. The family is something very important for people like your mom or my mom to do their work. Coming back home and having this love and comprehension about their work, and maybe not being around all the time, or us having to travel to a lot of places, that help is something that you did and you're still doing nowadays. You don't owe her or the world anything, and you're still doing that. And that's why it's amazing for us to keep, like, knowing you and knowing about your mom. You are very special, and thank you for sharing that with all of us and now the audience of our podcast. We really appreciate that.
Well, thank you most kindly. I appreciate your kind words. I was brought up, as an American, but also as a Swiss, and being an old European background, I feel like it's my duty to take care of my family, maybe more so than an American family would. So part of it is my Swiss background, and part of it is I really believe in karma, and I feel life has been, insanely generous to me. And I feel like now that I'm older and I've had my traveling around the world is a chance for me to pay back a world that's been very generous to me. So I just feel it's the only thing I could possibly do.
Yeah, you're not in debt. You're paying big time. Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much. Inviting everyone again to have their new copy of La Muerte, un amanecer from Dr. Elisabeth Kübler-Ross, the big teacher. This is a new edition, includes her thoughts, and it's very nice. Do you have your own copy with yourself, or they haven't sent one to you?
I have a giant set of copies in the garage, in the third bedroom, in the study. There's books here. There's books everywhere in this house. I gave Stanford 64 boxes, and I still have at least 20 30-gallon tubs plus gigantic shelves of books. So it's massive.
Wow. Wow. Let's keep reading, because always there is something new to learn about this great woman being ahead of her time and being ahead of our time. Even not being here right now, she's always ahead of us. So I can only tell you thank you, Ken. It was so nice talking to you. I would have you here forever, speaking about you, about the world, about photography, about your mom. We will leave here the Ken Ross site, Ken Ross Photography.
Okay,
so
great.
you can see the pictures, and also tell us where they can reach the Elisabeth Kübler-Ross Foundation. You have how many chapters right now?
We try to keep a dozen chapters. Some fade off after they've done their job, but some come back in. So we say there's 12, but it's flexible. So,
Okay.
and we have websites in 6 languages, but we've just translated the website so that anybody coming to the website, it automatically translates into their language. So that's just came up last month. So I'm very happy about that. That was one of my big dreams for this year.
Oh, this is amazing.
Everyone can read the website no matter where they come from. It's in their language automatically. You don't have to click a button. It just shows up.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing. And before you leave this podcast and maybe this world, is now that you've lived a lot, would you say that your life is one of those National Geographic magazine lives that you saw as a child and you say that's an experienced life? Would you say that is your life now, or is there something else that you're missing before and you have to do before you go?
Well, I'm greedy for life, but I think I've done as much as I ever expected in this lifetime. I had many beautiful adventures. I climbed mountains and rafted on the Zambezi and the Nile and, done all these crazy things. So, is it ever enough? I don't know. But, I'm still alive and I still have energy and, this zest for doing, exploring, and participating in this beautiful world. So I'll keep going until I can't anymore. So yes, I have, but I want more.
Yes,
that
we
was
want
the
more. 112 were the countries?
112.
112.
I'll go to a couple more.
113 coming soon.
Exactly.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you like this episode, please share it. We have to make this good news about life and death become viral. Although Elisabeth wouldn't care about if it is viral or no.
Right.
We do care about it because we want everyone to know her name, to honor her memory, and to know that a very good work is being done to keep her legacy. Thank you, Ken Ross.
Thank you, Gabby. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you.
Thank you, and see you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Si te gustó este episodio, por favor, compártelo.
Vamos a hacer una gran red de apoyo
Nos escuchamos la siguiente semana en un episodio más.
de Después de la pérdida.
Paz y bien.